what's up, guys? Christopher Stolle, and I'm joined with head of SJ Network and publicist out in Los Angeles, Mr. Stephen Joyner. Unfortunately, we are here today because of the fact that we have to address some business that had just recently came to my attention today that Stephen had actually found out about earlier. I'll let Stephen explain.
Oh, hi, Chris. Happy Memorial Day weekend to those who hear this. So, there was a gentleman I knew named Joe Crawford who lived in Canada. And I met Joe back in 2016, and he had a show called The Joe Crawford Show. And it was an interview show, just like Breaking the Fourth Wall, just like a lot of other shows that I deal with. By that time, when I met him, he had already interviewed Olivia Newton-John, Mike Tyson, Larry King, some really great people. And I would send him people to be interviewed. He was always accommodating, always very nice. And then his life got a little weird the last year. His girlfriend and he broke up. He became more elusive and more elusive. And then the radio station up in Niagara that he was on, he left there. And so he reached out to me and wanted me to get him in contact with Chris here and some other people to syndicate his program. And, of course, we were happy to oblige him because he was a nice guy. I got a message from a friend of mine in Canada on Thursday, a news article that came out. Joe Crawford was arrested for having possession of child porn and distribution of child pornography, and he's out on bail right now. And I just feel disgusted, and I'm angry because I don't know, Chris. I don't know what to say, Chris. I just feel like I'm mad, and I feel like what type of person. I don't know what to say, Chris. I'm just really mad.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, the major reason of this, and just to let people know that this isn't speculation. I will. He sent me the article. I will link it in the description of this video or audio, because this will be in audio form as well, down below, so you guys can click it and read it for yourself. The reason of being is SJ Network, it's absolutely known that SJ Promotions, SJ Network, and Realm of the Mist Entertainment do collaborate together. We are partners together. We promote each other's talent. We promote each other's content creators. We promote each other's shows and a lot of the celebrities that you guys have enjoyed on Breaking the Fourth Wall have come to me through SJ Network and SJ Promotions. So it's very much a symbiotic relationship. And part of the reason that Realm of the Mist started syndicating other podcasts and content creators is because of SJ Network. So that's why I wanted to make sure that Stephen Joyner was a part of this. I wanted to apologize that as of today, we have discontinued syndicating Joe Crawford's show. His content has been completely removed from any format of Realm of the Mist Entertainment. And the reason of being is because I'm going to be fair enough to say that this is allegation. There's no conviction yet. He's still under indictment. He's still... In this world, you're innocent until proven guilty.
I should say that too.
I
should say that too, but the thing is, huh?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I should say that too, but the thing is, folks, this didn't just happen overnight. I don't think. I think that there's an investigation on him. I don't know if we have the FBI in this country. I don't know if they have in Canada, whatever. But this. You know what I'm saying, man? They have to have solid proof to go arrest you for something like this.
No, absolutely.
But I don't know.
Absolutely. I was going to say that in my deposition. Some people that do know my personal struggles that have happened to my family in my life. I know this firsthand from like people I know within Homeland Security and ICE that deal with the Cyber Crimes Division, particularly in pornography. They don't come after you unless they have solid evidence that you did it. So 99.9% of the time, if they've arrested you, they already know you're guilty of it. So...
And that's the thing. And something, too, Chris and I and other people, all the show hosts, we don't really dabble into their personal lives. meaning, it's their personal life. We share a lot of things, our families, and we talk about, that's what friends do. But for the most part, none of the show hosts have. I just feel like I was had or something. You know what I'm saying? Like he pulled a big. I want to know how long this was going on. I don't know, man. I just feel disgusted for even knowing the guy.
No, I'm right there with you, and I'm trying very desperately to try to remain professional here, for the sense of Realm of the Mist Entertainment, because I do have personal feelings towards this. Again, for people who know me, what has happened to my children in the past, I have zero tolerance for anybody who is a child predator of any type. I have zero tolerance for anybody who's a sexual predator of any type. And obviously, this classifies as both. Now, with that said, as far as the professional end, I'm going to get the professional end out of the way before I even go into my personal end. The professional end, the reason Realm of the Mist has removed Joe Crawford over these allegations, because these allegations alone go against our personal standards and practices within the company. Personal meaning that our company, we tolerate a lot of things. Like Steve said, we don't delve into people's personal lives. However, if your personal life bleeds into the shows and the content and reflects negatively, as something like this would, upon the company and the other content creators that we help promote that have nothing to do with what you've done, I cannot have you within that company. So I do apologize to my listeners and my followers and everything else of Realm of the Mist Entertainment that enjoy all of our content. Please continue to do so. But the reason of being that Joe Crawford experience has been removed is because of these allegations, and we will not be associated with those types of allegations in any way, shape, or form. Now that I've done the professional disclaimer, on a personal note, I'm absolutely fucking disgusted.
Yep.
I am absolutely grotesque and disgusted that this person was even remotely associated to something that, truth be told, I started doing as a means to forget about what has happened to my own children.
Yep, and it's funny because they always say it's the last person you would expect.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And for people that don't know, that may not have caught the After Hours episode or whatever, my children were molested, and the molestation was put online while during the separation between myself and my ex-wife. The babysitter that she was leaving them with as she was going out dating other people had done so, and Homeland Security and ICE Cyber Division is the ones who caught them. Now, luckily, my children, and it's terrible to say luckily, but luckily my children were young enough that they don't seem to have been affected by it psychologically, and this asshole has been given fucking like 68 years in prison, federally and state-wise. So I shouldn't have to deal with that issue ever again. However, I never had tolerance for people who were sexual predators or child predators to begin with. But after dealing with it firsthand myself, I have less than zero tolerance for it. And to find out that this person who was associated with Realm of the Mist, maybe through syndication, but associated with Realm of the Mist, has even remotely been accused of this, absolutely freaking sickens me. And I'm right there with Steve. I'm fighting very hard not to just put this guy on blast, because I do not buy into the propaganda of pedophilia being a form of sexuality like transgenderism or homosexuality.
No.
There are people that try to push that propaganda. I do not buy into it at all. It is an illness, it is a disease, and it needs to be eradicated from society. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and sad. Okay, here's the thing that's bothering me even more, and I'm trying to be calm about this, is that, number one, he's not even in jail. He's bonded out, which is creepy in itself.
You said he's in Canada, right?
But he's in Canada. And I don't know their laws up there, but he's in Canada. And secondly, he's out on bond. He could be a flight risk. I don't know. The point is that he's out, and there's probably children living in his neighborhood. Now he's not allowed to be around anybody under the age of 18. He's been completely kicked off of social media. So for the listeners who hear this, don't go hunting him down. You're not going to find him, and for good reason. But the thing is, when I got this message, his page was still active, and I said, "Hey, you need to call me now." I kind of unloaded on him, and then it was just gone. It's a Facebook user. So this was on Thursday. It must have been right after he got out of court. But the point is that it's just scary. It's disgusting. And what's scary is if you would have, for anybody who ever met him, everybody who he interviewed, I mean, I sent him like Carl Gottlieb. I sent him some big people, and you never would have guessed in a million years. And what's really scary, forget his radio, his podcast was the guy would dress up like Santa Claus, and he was involved with, you know what I'm saying? He was like a pillar of his community.
Right.
And Chris, I just can't figure out the mindset. I can't wrap my head why somebody gets off on shit like that. It freaks me out, man.
I don't get it either. I don't even want to try to speculate. I
almost could accept it more. I could almost, real quick, Chris, I know it sounds really bad, but I'm just going to say it. If he shot a guy, I could accept that more.
That's what I was about to say. I was about to agree on that. I could see crimes of passion. I could almost, to the extent, see crimes of rape. I don't agree with them. I'm not saying I agree with them anymore, but I understand the mind process, of it, whether it's premeditated, not premeditated, or otherwise. But I do not, like you, I do not get the mindset, nor am I willing to even allow myself down that dark place to try to figure out that mindset.
It's evil.
It's evil in the purest form. It is literally, you are literally taking away the truest form of innocence. Children, no matter what age, children are the only souls on this planet who are clean. The best way I can describe it. They haven't been corrupted by the world. They still see the world as new and exciting and beautiful. And then you go and do something like this for your own pleasure and amusement, whatever that is. You are literally taking pleasure in destroying innocence and beauty. I can't think of a more evil person on the planet.
No, and it's the damage they cause children. The long-term damage they cause children. And for him to, it's just vile, man. I mean, I would if I read that he shot a guy, I could almost accept that. I could accept that more. There's a lot. This is the evilest of the evil, man.
Well, that's exactly it. Like if you would have told me that he shot somebody or he raped somebody, I still would have removed him from Realm of the Mist, but I would have been like, I would have been like, you know what, he'll get what's coming to him. This is one of those situations that, and I'm not calling for it. Let me disclaimer this right now. I am not calling for it, but I would applaud a lynch mob. That's how much I despise child molesters. Everybody else, it's day in court, let justice serve. With this, I'm literally disgusted that, like you, I'm disgusted that Canada allowed him to walk out of a jail cell. I'm disgusted at that.
Let me ask you that. Do you think it's because of the COVID thing?
It could be because of the COVID thing. It could simply be because he did post a bail, although I don't understand why they would even give him a bail. If he's dirty enough to harm a child, and to be all right, let me disclaimer this. From what I understand, there's no necessarily proof that he ever laid a hand or finger on a child. I have to be clear because of legality. So there's no proof that he's ever laid a finger on an actual child. However, downloading porn and distributing that pornography around the world is still deviant behavior and disgusting. So I just want to be completely clear. When I say a child molester, he's as good as. Just because he hasn't put his hand on a child yet, maybe.
Well, then we know, though, too. We don't know.
Right. That's why I say maybe.
And I mean, every winter, he would do okay, he would dress up like Santa Claus. He was involved in his church, and honestly, I didn't think the dude ever would do anything bad. Okay, I didn't.
Right.
The guy didn't even smoke. Like I just thought he was kind of a dorky dude. I'm being serious here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always nice and kind. I never had a cross word with him. And that, oh shit, man, this is hard to talk about, but we got to do it. The fact that children were crawling on his lap in December, you know what I'm saying, dude? This is
Right.
just vile shit. And the fact, so I'm not going to say, I don't know what he did. It's all going to come out. It could get more ugly.
True.
And for that matter, Canada, I don't want to down the country, but damn, he should be in jail, denied bail. That was my opinion. Okay, he should not have bail.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's a failure on Canada's part that you would allow somebody who, look, all right. Again, I don't know how, like Steve said, I don't know how Canada's law system works. I can only go off of speculation and basis of my own personal experience with the case that unfortunately I had to suffer through with my children. But I do know that when Canada, or yeah, when Homeland Security and ICE went after Stephen Mazer, the one who molested my children, they laid a sting on him for months. They watched his movements for months. And when they finally went in and after him, they had all the evidence in hand. They had their case before they even arrested him. Now, as far as I understand it,
That's what I'm saying.
that's how they do it to all of them. So if Canada works even remotely in the same way, there's no way, even if this guy has never once physically laid his own personal hands or other parts on a child, that behavior and months of it is enough to say you are a danger to society. We can't, in good conscience, release you on your own. There's just no way.
But yet he's out, man.
So to me, that's a failure on Canada's judicial system. That being said, hopefully they still have a strong enough case that when this goes to trial, this man will be convicted and sentenced severely. Because people like that do not need to be in a society of people who have children, who follow laws and the rules, who have morals and proper
okay,
upbringings.
but let's talk. We're both you and okay. Let's talk real. Let's not sugarcoat anything. Let's talk about the probability of what if, just for whatever. Okay. Now I'm sure Canadian people are going to hear this and probably be like, "Oh, these Americans, they don't," I mean, because there are a lot of people in this country that should have been put away. You agree?
Oh, of course. Oh, of course. I'm not trying to dick Canada or diss Canada's judicial system. I mean, our judicial system has failed on numerous occasions as well.
Yeah. But what happens, Chris, if he doesn't get put away and gets probation? What happens if he gives him some song and dance that he was a mental? Let's talk about what happens if maybe he gets 3 months.
I mean, well, again, I'm with my ignorance of Canada. It comes into play with this a lot. So, take my Canadian listeners and all that. Take this with a grain of salt, okay? But I got to imagine that Canada prisons are not too dissimilar to American prisons when it comes to child molesters. And if word gets out in prison, 3 months is maybe all he needs to have the situation handled. However, if he steps out back into public, makes it through it, or he gets acquitted, then we're going into a dangerous gray territory. If he was acquitted because the evidence just wasn't there, or he was proven innocent, then by all means, I even retract my own statement. I was wrong or misled. That being said,
same here.
If there's a technicality or something that he got off on, and he's guilty, but because somebody didn't cross an I or dot a T, or whatever the case may be, and I know I twisted that around. and he gets off on a technicality, then I hope Canada would do the exact same thing that I would think Americans would do in that situation, and that's take the law into their own
Hmm.
hands. And again, I'm not advocating violence, but people
But
like
we're
that
not
are
advocating it. You know, so we're not
no,
advocating
I'm
that
not
at all. We're
advocating
talking about these are our words.
I'm not advocating violence. However, I think that if the law system fails them, then the people need to take the law into their own hands. I don't mean violence. I do mean keeping this person out of their neighborhoods, out of their school districts, just shun this man from society. Make it where he
You know,
goes and lives in the Yukon where nobody is, and that's all he's allowed to be because you will not have him back in your society. And that's the God's honest truth. If the law system fails, then the Canadian people have to step up and make sure this person does not harm another child in any way, shape, or form. And again, I'm not advocating that as a call to violence. I'm not advocating that as go out and lynch mob his ass. I'm saying shun him, go to your town halls and your meetings to make sure he is not permitted to buy property or rent property in your neighborhoods, in your school districts. Paper neighborhoods with his face so that way cops and families and all that know what he looks like, and they see him in the neighborhood, they turn around and get the cops to get him out of
well,
that
I hope.
welcome area.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the article, Chris is going to put link to this, but this is real, and it feels like it's scary because Chris met him over the phone. When Chris was syndicated, we were trying to help this guy. We had no idea. It's amazing that his bail was so low too. Let's talk about that. 2,500 Canadian.
Yeah, in
It says,
Canadian.
okay, I'm looking at the article. I'm looking at the article right now. It says Crawford was released from custody, $2,500 bail, comma, no deposit, and must abide by several conditions, including not be in the presence of anyone under 16 and not have access to the internet. And this ain't going to happen tomorrow, folks. He's scheduled to Crawford is scheduled to answer the charges in Welland Court July 29th.
Yeah, it's a couple months away.
Okay, right here. As a result of an investigation that started in September, he is charged with 4 counts of child pornography and 3 counts of accessing child pornography and making available child pornography. He was arrested Wednesday, and it's like reading about someone I didn't know.
Unfortunately, it is the dark side of
And
of entertainment, including podcasting. Is again with the syndications, like with Realm of the Mist, and I know Steve deals with this even more than we do, when it comes to like podcasters, for example. None of us really know each other or know all that much about each other, and I'm not doing this to dog anybody that we associate with,
no,
but
go
the
ahead.
but the fact of the matter is that we most of the people that we associate with, we don't know them from Adam, but we think we start building a relationship, a rapport, a bond with these people. To find out that these people have this kind of dark side is absolutely shockingly, breathtakingly bad. Because you've entrusted them with a voice. You've entrusted them to help further their ambitions. You've entrusted them to bring them, like Steve does, celebrities and all that not only boost their shows, but you're introducing these celebrities who are not only just clients but friends of yours to people of this caliber, not knowing that these people are this way. It's such a
Well,
weird world to live in that way.
a lot of okay. So good point. So when I send Chris Larry Hankin's number and he interviews Larry Hankin, not many people, celebrities are even worse because they don't have that information flying out there. They're more subjected to stalkers and weird things.
Mm-hmm.
Chris has interviewed a couple of women who I won't say who have been in movies for years, who actually have restraining orders against stalkers.
Mm-hmm.
The point is when I introduce so and so to Chris or any other show, I say, he's going to interview you. There's an exchange of emails, phone numbers. They always become Facebook friends, which is great, and you develop a friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and that's wonderful. We don't go, but when there's a comfortability line where when Chris and I first met, I don't know, Chris, how much you knew about me, and I don't know a lot of people who I know, I don't really share about my life, because I just, and then we started talking, we'll talk about, okay, Chris, I want to put this person on the program, and, I don't know how to explain it. It's a lot of business, and then you become friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to give an apology to a young woman who I've never met before, who I was rude to tonight, a friend of Chris's named Serenity, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I basically was rude to her because I was consumed by this and a health issue that's going on with someone I love. So I apologize to her. But Chris, hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
After learning this about Joe, do you understand why I'm leery of people now, strangers?
No, I absolutely get it.
And she's not letting. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying, dude?
Yeah, I get it. And like I said to you off air, it's kind of my fault too that I didn't let you know how deep the association ran. So that way it didn't come off as just some Joe Smo I talked to earlier today. Yeah.
I didn't know. I
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
Well, no, I didn't know. Chris has a friend of his. He's known for 2 decades. That holds a lot of water. And when Chris tells me, "Hey, this guy or this girl is good," I always say, "Okay, yeah." He puts them over. Okay, yeah, they're good. But we have a conference call thing we usually do on Sunday evenings, and he added this person, and I thought, wait, what is this all about? But it wasn't. It could have been anybody on earth. It's not directed at her exactly. It's just I was so thinking about how a snake came into our lives. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel guilty that I introduced this clown to people because I didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, I just, it's like every time I spoke to Crawford, Chris, he didn't even swear, man.
I know.
I mean, do you know what I'm saying? It's like this is the last person on earth, and I know they always say that.
One thing I know, again, from the personal experience that I had, and I do thank you for that. Before I move on, I do thank you for that. But I mean, from my personal experience, what I know of Stephen Mazer, and I don't know if this helps point it out or not. At least in this particular case, it kind of helped point towards it. Is he had a very childlike mentality. The guy was 25 years old and would go do Pokemon card tournaments, with children.
Okay.
With children. He was more comfortable around children than other adults. Not just in the Pokemon. I know there's adult people who play Pokemon. They go to the tournaments and stuff like that at like card shops. I don't mean that. I mean he would literally enroll in the tournaments that were for kids. He would not go and hang with other adults.
At all?
Outside of my ex-wife, not really. No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's weird in itself.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact of the matter is, I'm not saying that people that do that, because I know people who are more comfortable with children and have more of a childlike mentality than adults, and they would never once think of harming a child. So that I call it a red flag, but not necessarily an identification marker. Okay.
Yeah, but I have noticed the trend too. But go ahead.
So I don't want to say that it's set in stone that if somebody like, because I for example, I play Yu-Gi-Oh. I like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I think it's a decent game. I won't go to a children's tournament to play it. I'll play it with my buddies who are my age. You know what I mean? But, so there's things that, like, you can call them red flags, but they're not necessarily, set in stone that this means that person's a pedophile. But I think if you see these types of strange behaviors in that person along with their social life, it may be cause to just at least be on your guard and on the lookout, I would say. With that said, when it comes to like what Steve said about like he feels responsible that he brought this person into the fold, dude, there's no way you can know. There's no way any of us can know because again, it's not like myself or Michael Moore submitted some sort of life resume to you before we joined SJ Network. You know what I mean?
But I tried to think I was a good judge of character, man. I
No, of
did in the
course.
past, but and it's funny because I see a trend, and I'm not a profiler or any of that shit, but I see a trend, man, that Joe, remember Jared, the subway guy?
Oh, of course. Yeah, he's a perfect example.
Okay,
He's a perfect example of what I'm
chubby,
talking about.
chubby, chubby dude, kind of, kind of around the public a lot. Joe was around the public. Besides his show, he was a crooner. He would sing for old women and stuff. And I mean, he was a pillar of his community. But he kind of, I don't know if it's. I mean, there's the monsters come in all shapes and forms.
But the thing that
But right now, I'm actually like comparing him to the Jared dude. Man, do you see the similarity there or no?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is social awkward, but like you said, and that kind of red flagged from the Stephen Mazer thing that I was talking about, in a sense too, because besides socially awkward, you said he used to sing to the elderly. He'd like to go to old age homes and do that.
Yeah,
Stephen Mazer
yeah.
would teach karate to fucking kids. He was part of a dojo and was an instructor.
That's and see, there you go.
You know what I
And when
mean?
you and I and Chris and I are a couple of years apart in age. When we were kids,
Not by much.
these were trusted adults.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a karate teacher, and we had, and so, and the fact, and what really gets me too is that Joe was so active in his church. I mean, that there's many layers of that makes me bothered by this, but the thing is that every time this happens, now the world's a little bit more unsafer, and parents like you, Chris, with little ones, are more, more worried about everything. And when we were coming up, I mean, these people, look at, when you and I were little kids, these people existed.
They existed, yeah, but they were more
This is nothing
underground.
new.
They were a
Yeah,
lot more
now
underground.
it's like,
I
but
think the biggest
now it's
problem
like,
is with
dude,
today's political society, and I'm not going to get into politics in this, but in this particular
no,
instance,
no, no.
in today's political society of tolerance and the major push by the pedophile community to have pedophilia recognized as a sexual preference as opposed to a
Mental,
mental and psychological disorder, I think has, in a sense, in its own right, kind of normalized it to where we are seeing more and more of this. And I'm not just putting the blame on politics. Social medias and easy access to the internet has unfortunately made it very simple for people to find pornography to begin with. You know what I mean? Like you can go to Pornhub for
yeah,
free
yeah,
now.
good point.
You can go to Pornhub for free now just to, get your rocks off. Well, it's just as simple for these pedophiliacs as well. Unfortunately, it's again the
When Chris
dark
and
side
I,
of technology.
when you and I were young, Chris, we had Skinamax, and you had to go to, they had the video stores, and they had the section of the video
The
store.
back room.
Now people have, yeah, people. You remember those days, man? People now have phones. They can pull up whatever they want, whenever they want of pornography, and that's scary.
You can
And the fact,
you could search engine Google and just turn off the safety mode, and you get all the pornography you want. It's that simple access. There's no checking of age. There's no checking of content.
no,
It is that simple, and unfortunately, that ease of access has brought these people out of the shadow.
and when we were younger, you go to go to a video store. You had the curtain. You have to be 18 to go in there. It's like buying liquor.
Mm-hmm.
Now with technology, geez, man, it's unbelievable. And I'm not downing people who watch pornography at all,
No, not at all.
but
There's a difference between
like I said,
healthy sexual
this is
appetite and
gross.
sexual deviancy. Yeah.
This is deviancy. This is disgusting, and we're not going to get political, but with but the groups that say this is good, I don't care if I offend them because I hate their guts anyway. But the groups that say, oh, A preference? No, fuck off. It's not a preference.
Well, that's exactly it. Like
It's disgusting.
what I mean by politics is that they've tried to lump themselves in with like the LGBTQ communities and all that, and
No,
with the LGBTQ
and they're not.
making a
They're not
major.
that.
No, they're not that. That's what I'm saying. With the LGBTQ trying to push for more rights and more equality and stuff. You know what? Power to you guys. Power to your group. 120,000%. Everybody has a right to be miserable. You know, we call it marriage. You know, and all that. So absolutely, I am all for that movement. However, with the pedophilias and the mamblas and all that trying to say, well, we should be part of that organization because our sexuality, our sexual preference is just as legitimate as theirs. No, wrong. Not in any way, shape, or form.
No,
You know, and that has nothing
it's
to do.
not. And,
It, it doesn't have any sentience of the fact that I'm Christian or that Steve's Jewish. So we have like religious moral values. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with simple societal
I know
morals.
atheists that don't go for this sort of thing. It's just a human thing, and you're right. It's just, and I have some friends that are transgender, and they're, that's a choice right there for
Hmm.
them. It is, Chris. They
Yeah.
want to be women, fine. But they're not. You said it best in the beginning of this. Children are the most untarnished things on earth. They don't know racism. They don't lie really. They're kids, man. They
Hmm.
they don't know any different.
The world is
And then
still new,
when
exciting, and
one of these,
fresh. Yeah.
yeah, and then when someone comes in there and does this, what people may forget is that when you abuse somebody when they're a kid, that kid's it's like almost killing part of their soul, man,
Hmm.
and it goes on forever.
And
I was
I'll tell you
I
straight
don't
out
know
as
who's
a
gonna hear this.
hopefully everybody. But I mean, you know, and I don't mean that just for numbers. I mean because it's a message that needs to be said. But the fact of the matter is like from my own standpoint, I can tell you now, like I hope my children never remember it. I hope it's the water that I have to carry. Okay, that of what happened to them. However, for the rest of my life, I have to worry about how this unfortunate experience is going to affect their lives, whether they're going to have relapses in memory. Now, my children were 1 and 2 when the shit happened to them. Okay, so far they've shown like no remembrance of it whatsoever. They've been normal kids since. And I'm thankful every day for that. But I still have to worry about this. And I imagine like it's the same worry that you got to have for older children that have gone through this. You know, that you got to worry about how this is going to bleed into their relationships as they're adults, whether they're going to have relapses that screw up their social abilities out on their own, like trust issues and panic attacks and like I said, with relationships, can they have normal relationships with a guy or a girl because of some guy or girl that hurt them as a child? Like these are things
Hmm.
the thing that these pedophiliacs do not get, or at least do not care. I don't know if they don't get. They at least don't care. Is how much damage and repercussions will follow that poor child the rest of their lives.
Well, I'll share something with you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was sexually abused by a woman when I was 8.
I'm sorry to hear
When
that.
my parents split up, I'll tell you a story no one really knows, but whatever. So, when I was 8 years old, my parents split up. My dad was a very abusive guy, physically and mentally, and he went up he went up to San Luis Obispo, which is up in Central California, and he was working in a place called Diablo Canyon. He was in charge of a division up there, and he started dating a woman. And my mom thought it was important that I go spend time with him, so I went up to Central California from Southern California, and I would stay with my dad. It was the summer of '85. This happened, and
Jesus Christ.
I spent a summer. Well, I'll tell you what happened, man. It's great. This is how people heal on this earth. I spent a summer with him, and I was a little boy, and little boys, I didn't take baths. I didn't want to take a bath. I was playing in the mud. I was a boy.
Right.
And he assigned this woman the task of making sure I took a bath, and she abused me. Now, I felt dirty. I can't even begin to tell you how I felt. And she told me it was normal stuff. So I go back to Southern California in late September. I start school. I get into a fight with a kid in October, and I got taken to the principal's office. They called my mom, and there was a school counselor that was saying, trying to do the counseling job and saying, well, I know you're mad because your father is kind of moved on, and it's, but the whole, trying to figure out why we got in a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the counselor said to me, you don't have to like the woman your father is with, but you have to respect her. And I said, well, and I remember clear as day, Chris. I said, well, as long as she doesn't give me another bath. She said, well, what'd you say? Next thing I know, dude, there's 20 cops there. I can't even begin to tell you what would happen. My mom was very shaken and terrified and angry. You know that horrible feeling.
Oh yeah.
And then the police called my dad, and my father told the cops, it's a big lie. It's his mother just trying to get more child support out of me. So my father took his girlfriend's side against me. Yes. And it went to court, and my dad had enough money to hire attorneys and all that noise. And they told her that they wanted her to take a lie detector test. She wouldn't do it. So the only legal repercussion for this woman was she could never work around children or elderly people. And she had to go to counseling for a few months. And that was it.
How old were you at the time?
I was 8.
Jesus Christ.
8 or 9 when I turned 9. Okay, well, I'll tell you something no one knows about me. And it messed me up. And I had to go to a counseling class. It was predominantly little girls and shit because it was harder. It was harder then when a boy got abused because we just didn't talk about shit. We were boys. We didn't talk about that stuff.
Right.
And my mom, God rest her soul, was the one that basically told me, there's a difference between love and sex and making love and having sex. My mom really gave, she got me through that whole thing.
Right.
But it still messed me up. And it hurt that my own father sided with someone that hurt his child. And I kept my virginity till I was like 18 years old, man. I was terrified of a lot of things. You talked about anxiety. Dude, I had it all. And then my father catches lung cancer when I was 21. No, I was 22, excuse me. And my mother wanted me to take care of him. And I did. I went over to El Centro where he lives, California, Southern Imperial Valley. And I took care of my dad. And lo and behold, when he got lung cancer, the woman that he was with left him, the woman that abused me. He ended up marrying the woman that abused me. And she left him when he got lung cancer. And I was driving my dad to get chemotherapy. It was over in San Diego. So El Centro's down in the Imperial Valley. You go over the grade, the mountain, you're in San Diego and stuff. So I'm driving there one day, and my dad's talking about Marcia, that was her name. And he looked at me and said, did she really do that to you? I said, yeah. I said, this was years ago. Yeah, she did it to me. He says, well, I always wondered, but I didn't want to believe it. And, that really hurt. My own father didn't take my side from the get-go because kids don't make that sort of thing up.
You know what, though? Not to defend your father, but that, and not to interrupt you, but, that is something that a lot of pedophiles use to their example. And when you finish your story, I will explain what I mean in more detail using how I found out about what happened to my children as an example. But broken homes, divorces are a perfect spot for pedophiles to fit themselves in because of the fact that they know they can hide. They know they can hide what they're doing by having the husband and the former husband and wife at odds with each other anyway. unfortunately, it is a
She was
perfect
a
cover for
master
them.
manipulator.
Yeah, so they use that situation to manipulate their way into what they want to do. So, I'm not.
And I felt like an awkward guy all through high school, Chris, because when I was in high school, I'm sure it's the same way there in Philadelphia for you.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, there was always the Jim Walker talk about guys who slept with this girl and that girl and all that rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like an oddball because I still was a virgin at 17 years old. Now, it's because there's a lot of hangups I still had, and so there you go. I went all through my teens, and then when my father finally, when he was sick with cancer, understood that he what she did, and then I did get my revenge, believe it or not. So one night, I had got. No one knows the story, man. You're my brother knew it, but he's dead. My mom did. She's gone. So you're hearing something that no one's known. She came over one night, and she was on the front porch. She says, "I want to talk to your father." And my dad went out there, and he's on his oxygen, and she's laying into him and just being an evil bitch, man. She was just evil, and she wanted me out of their quote house. It was my dad's, but she tried doing that. Hey, Chris, I lost it. I went out there and I said, I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm going to take you out. I'm going to finish you right now. She said, "Are you threatening my life?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to kill you." I literally said it, dude. I just lost my mind. And I said it in a very cold way, and she ran off. I chased her away from my dad, and she took off, and the police came. And lo and behold, the cop said, "What happened?" I said, "She came over here to harass my dad." And the cop looks at me and he's all, "Did you make a threat?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And I swear to God, the cop said, "Well, you know what? I wasn't there, so I'm going to let it go." And that woman knew, A, I finally stood up to her, and B, and it's funny because I ended up protecting the man who didn't believe me. And that's funny, but he was my dad at the end of the day.
Well, of
So
course, and you
that's
got to
how
defend
life
your dad.
works out sometimes.
Well, to further into what I was saying, when I interrupted you, because of the fact that it brought up a very valid point, and again, I'm going to preface it with an example from how I discovered what happened to my children at the time. But they do use the broken home. Separations and divorces to get into those situations with children because they can use the usually the animosity of really disgusting divorces to hide what they're doing. Because like your dad did, no, my girlfriend didn't do that, or in the case of my ex-wife, oh, Steve's a friend of mine, he wouldn't do that, type situations. When I found out about my kids, I was working as a maintenance mechanic for an apartment complex back in October of 2012. Okay, and I had just gotten this job. Okay, I was still in the throes of divorce. We were separated, but we weren't even divorced yet. Okay, with my ex-wife, and I was working one day, and my cell phone rings, and when I answered the phone, I was not going to because it was an unknown number, so I thought it might have been like a telemarketer or something. But because
Yeah.
I was in between doing what I was doing, I grabbed my phone and answered it. And they asked if I was, Christopher Stolle. And I said, who's this? And it's like, well, I need to verify you're Christopher Stolle. I said, well, I need to verify who the hell you are before I give you any personal information. I was kind of a dick about it. And finally, they turned around and
Mm-hmm.
told me that they were a agent for Homeland Security. Now, bells go off in my head right off the bat because I'm like, wait a minute. I'm ex-Navy. I'm an American patriot. I pay my taxes. I vote. I don't get in trouble with the law. So what the hell does Homeland Security want to talk to me for? So I'm buying this with a grain of salt, and I'm like, what do you want? And it's like, well, we need to speak with you. I said, you have me on the phone, and it's like, no, we need to speak to you in person. Can we come to your house? No. No, you can't come to my house. Well, I'm at work right now anyway. Well, can we come to your job? No, I don't want you knowing where I work. Can you come to the offices? I'm at work. I can't come to your offices right now. I don't even know where your offices are. So finally we agreed on a Burger King in in the area that wasn't too far away from my job. They didn't know that, but I just said I'll take lunch at Burger King. I'll meet you there. And they showed up, and I wanted to see their badges and their credentials, and it was legit. It was Homeland Security. So I sat down, and little known to them, a couple booths down was my coworker and friend. He was listening in because I didn't trust the situation. And that's when they proceeded to
Okay.
tell me about Stephen Mazer and my children, and started showing me not full graphic pictures, but pictures they pulled off his computer and cropped so that way they could identify the children themselves to verify that it was my children.
Oh man.
And it
Oh
absolutely
man.
crushed me. Now, during that process and everything else, I had to go back to work that day, the rest of the day, with this knowledge in my head. And after a while, I started and had a rapport with the agent in charge of the investigation and everything. And I got instantly involved with the court proceeding. Anything you need, I'm there. What do I do to help my children? You know, and through rapport, I discovered that they knew about this months in advance. All right, almost to the point of the week that my ex-wife and I separated is when this shit started, and he pinged on their radar. Almost a
Mm-hmm.
week to the day. And I said, how come it took you guys so long to contact me? Here, it was because my ex-wife knew, because they came to her right away. And my ex-wife told them that I was an absentee father who did not give a fuck about his children. It wasn't worth trying to contact me. It was the agent who went the extra mile to track me down because my ex-wife told him I was a deadbeat. Didn't want me even involved. She lied to a federal government agent to keep me
No
out of the
log this
loop.
sort of thing.
I'm trying. I'm trying with the civil court system about that. The agent is still in contact with me and is trying to get me the transcripts as soon as they're released, showing not only of what she did to block me of the children, but also showing how involved I was with the case as soon as they contacted me and knew what was going on. To the point that I've even testified at the sentencing. I was at every trial. I was at every hearing to the day of sentencing. I still have the speech I wrote, the letter, because I knew I would lose it if I didn't read it. You know what I mean? I still have that letter. I won't throw it away. And all. And the point that I'm saying in this is that my ex-wife, number one, wanted to not believe her friend would do something like that to her children, even though it was blatantly in their face. And number two, he used her hatred of me and my hatred of her to get to my children. He used it. He used it. He stepped in knowing that I was pissed off at my ex-wife and still very heated from my ex-wife cheating on me, that I would not be rational around her, so I would be out of the picture. In turn, he turned around and played the concerned friend and stoked her dislike of me, having an issue with her cheating on me, to make sure that she was constantly at odds with me, to the fact that when she went out, I wouldn't be the one to watch the kids. He would.
Let me ask you something. What happens someday down the road when what happens if your kids ever find out about this? You know what I'm saying?
It's something.
If your ex-wife says, "Oh, by the way," when it may you know what I'm saying, it may rear its ugly head one day.
You know what? It's something I worry about dramatically. It's kind of like but it's also kind of along the lines of, like, right now, my children are 11 and 10. And to kind of give an example of what I'm about to say here, my children don't know that mommy and daddy are separated because mommy cheated on me. They know that mommy and daddy just don't love each other anymore. That's by my choice. And it's because of the fact that I don't want my children to hate mommy. I hate mommy, but they don't need to. You know what I mean? I try to play the peacekeeper within the relationship. When it comes to the Stephen Mazer and what he did thing, and how she handled the situation, I've kept the proof and the evidence that I can, and of course, getting more with the special agent that I have been working with and associated with, um, all there for if that inevitable day comes. But I fear that inevitable day. I really do. I fear the day they remember. I fear the day that it affects their personal lives. I fear the day that they approach me and said, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" You know, or
Yeah.
the statement that gives
So,
me nightmares every night is, "Why didn't you protect me?"
well, yeah. I mean, this is all real, and there's no chance she'll ever see the light of day, right?
Apparently not. Now, the other day that I spoke on this and After Hours, which normally is a comedy show, but I went to a very dark place. I had received information from the Department of Justice that he has been attempting appeals and that there was a change in his status. And that freaked me out to no end. But luckily, when the status disposition was finally posted, it was denial. He's still serving his time with no parole. So,
Yeah.
you know, he should be. He was 25 when, or 29 when he went in, and serving 65 years. He's probably not walking out of there. But I still fear the day that he might. I fear the day that some forgive me for this, but some liberal-hearted judge who turns around and does agree that pedophilia is a sexual preference turns around and accepts one of his appeals, you know, or considers the sentence to be too harsh. I fear that day. I fear it every day. You know, and my aspect is coming from a parent. So I empathize when you told me your story. I empathize with you, you know, a lot with what you went through. But I empathize more with your mother because in this type of scenario, I was your mother or am your mother in that same aspect. What she had to go through with what learning about what happened to you, I'm going through what happened
Yeah,
to my
it's
kids.
horrifying.
It is. And there's no worse feeling on this
Man,
planet. Believe me when I tell you, there is no worse feeling on this planet as a parent than feeling like you failed. The one primary job that you have as a parent, and that is to protect your children. And that is
it's
exactly
true.
how I feel.
But you didn't fail. You know, I mean, you didn't know. No one knew. I didn't know. I didn't know that Joe was the way he was. No one knew.
Which is why I empathize with
Here's the most.
the parents that of the victims of Joe. Even if it's just pictures, I empathize with those parents. I really do. I know
And
the pain they're going
here,
through right now.
and here's the sad part. I mean, that's the good part. Excuse me. Well, I'll end this on a good note. Is that at least Joe got caught, and at least that Stephen, whatever's Mazer guy, got caught too.
Mm-hmm.
So at least they get caught.
I,
With your children's attacker, he's in prison. Joe's not, and I am adamant about. I'm going to keep an eye on this because I hope he goes to prison. And if he doesn't, then I'm going to be very, you know, bothered
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go a
by
step
it.
after this conversation. I'm gonna go a step farther. With especially with breaking the fourth wall. Obviously, breaking the fourth wall is an interview show, and I'm not using this
Yeah,
as a promotional point to say, hey, let's do shows, let's do shows and do shows and do shows and promote.
no,
But I feel that this is a story that needs to come out, and I think it not just the Joe Crawford situation, not just like what you went through, and not just what I went through. I know there's a bunch of people out there that have been through it as well, in some way, shape, or form of like sexual assault, or maybe they were children who were abused, or whatever else, and I'm putting the call out there right now. If you guys want to talk about it, I'll be a therapy session. I think it's time that these stories come out so that people could see the damages that this type of thing does.
Yeah.
I am openly inviting. Contact me. The website is right there below the picture right now. For Realm of the Mist Entertainment, and it does link to Realm of the Mist's email account. Email me if you got a story you want to talk about. I will talk to you about it. I want to hear about it, and I want the rest of the world to hear it too. Because I think it's time, that it's not sensationalized like Maury or Ricky Lake or Oprah that's just
No.
looking for ratings.
There's nothing. We're not.
Exactly.
We're not. That's a whole different world right there.
That is a whole different world. I'm not looking for ratings or sensationalism. I'm looking to have honest conversations because I think people need to know. I think in this world now, more than ever, we need to know, and we need to put the warning signs out there for other parents and other people in this world. And I think the best way to do it is to know these experiences. So in a sense, I want to almost use breaking the fourth wall besides our celebrity interviews and interviews that we normally do. I want to use it as a catalyst to help this discussion along.
You don't heal till you face it.
Exactly. So the invitation is out there, people. If you got something you want to say, if you want to share your story, or you just feel that maybe you need to get it off your chest, contact me. Contact me directly.
Yeah.
I will absolutely have you on, and I will talk to you about it. I want to hear the story. I want to help you get it off your chest. And hopefully you want to help me get other parents and people at risk to know the warning signs, to hear the dangers. But I also want parents that are going through it, like myself, and victims who have gone through it, like Steve, to hear that there is life afterwards. That best way to describe it, there is life afterwards.
There is.
And
this isn't the last time it's going to happen.
No, it's not. Unfortunately,
it's. I wish that Joe was the end of them all, but he's not, and it will happen again. But it's how do you deal with it when it does happen to people, man? That's the thing. It's like I don't know. I just feel bad,
I do. I feel sickened and horrible, but I also feel extremely terrible for the victims. I empathize more than I should because of the fact that I'm right there in the same situation as them. And maybe that's why I'm more empathetic than maybe somebody who's never experienced it. But the fact of the matter is all good, decent human beings know the one thing in the world you do not do is harm a child. More than anything else in this world. And I think everybody can understand that sentiment that we express on that aspect.
You don't harm children. They're the most innocent things on earth, and you're a fucking madman if you do, and you're disgusting, and it's horrible. And I feel bad about this. I feel like why? Why? I keep asking why.
Well, the fact of the matter is you can never fix the problem until you address it. And pedophilia will never be repaired. Never stop. It'll never stop until we stop making excuses for it and start creating treatments for it. Real treatments. Stop making excuses that it's a sexual preference. Stop making excuses that it came because they came from abusive or whatever. I don't care the reason. Find the cure. I don't care if the cure's a
And there
bullet.
has to be accountability for things, Chris.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But what I'm
And
saying is,
that's one thing I love about. Good.
no, go ahead. You were saying.
That's one. Jack O'Halloran's a dear friend of mine, and he comes from a tougher generation than you and I. And but he always says, the word respect is missing out of this generation. But also, he also says that accountability is missing out of this generation.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes from a time that a guy like Joe and Stephen wouldn't even make it to court. So here's the thing: is that there's no accountability. Whenever anybody in this country, good example is, and when I don't, I'm just speaking what's on my mind right now.
Right.
When we had school shooters and stuff, and people going and shooting WalMarts and all that sort of rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
I hated how they always make the shooter look like some kind of tragic victim of society.
Oh yeah, the
They
victim.
never talk about the victims, man.
Right. They always made the gun person a victim of society, and they always blamed the gun. Never the person. They blamed
Yeah.
the gun.
So
The gun is a tool. The person is the one that pulled the trigger.
the gun's a tool. Yeah.
And
I don't think the guns kill people. I think that idiots kill people.
I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. The major problem with things like pedophilia is that we're too busy trying to make excuses on why they do it instead of taking responsibility, saying they did it. How do we fix it? How do we stop it?
And dealing with it too.
And dealing with it. How do we fix it? How do we stop it?
Yeah.
And that's the indifference. Stop making
That's
excuses for it. I don't care what psychological reason is behind it. I don't care that his daddy didn't hug him enough or his mommy didn't powder his ass enough in diapers. I don't care the reason.
But that's the society we live in there. That's the society we live in, pal, is that they, I know people in my past who had abusive parents. They didn't grow up to be abusers.
Right.
I know people from my past who had loving parents who grew up to be horrible people. I know people that were born in the hood who became criminals. I know people that were born in Malibu and Beverly Hills that became criminals. You can't blame something from your childhood that you know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
You can't say, well, it's accountability. We all have free will when we all have choice. There's no way that Joe Crawford could ever tell me or anybody on this, well, I was weak and I was told, like he'll, and you got to remember, he's going to have a defense attorney who's going to try to deal him out, most likely, but is going to try to make him look like this wasn't him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had any guts, he'd say, yes, I did this. But they won't. They never do. I mean, and it goes with a lot of people, with Cosby raping people and Epstein and then fucking Weinstein. You know what I'm saying, man?
No, absolutely.
Some people think that they're just beyond the law and repercussion because of money and status. Joe's not a rich person by any means, but he was a quasi-celebrity in his area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to make, that's what it boils down to. And they're going to use that in his defense probably, Chris. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they'll be like, well, this man did all these great things. And, this may be the first time he ever broke the law, too.
Yeah.
And here's something very, very interesting that I just thought of, dude. I haven't thought about this in a long time. So every day Joe would do you remember his videos every day he would do in Canada?
Yeah. I didn't post the videos. I only did the audio, but yeah, I remember the videos.
So Joe would do a morning thing where he'd do like the Did You Know daily, and then he would do the weather and so on. He was a personality.
Right.
Okay, so a couple of years ago, this is a trip that this is coming back to me. A couple of years ago, there was somebody that would go by his house and shoot BB guns and throw shit at his house. And he caught the car on camera a couple times. Why would they do that?
Maybe they knew about him.
I'm dead serious. Maybe they knew about him.
Or
See,
maybe they
this
didn't
is,
have proof, but
and I mean, this
they
is,
heard speculation of them at least.
this happened quite a bit. With cameras and shit, and they would do this to them. And it just makes you wonder I wonder how long he engaged in this. You know?
I imagine a very long time. I can't imagine somebody just
Yeah.
picking up and doing it one day. I can't imagine like
We know since September.
for myself as example, just to use me as an example. I can't imagine myself doing an internet search one day and accidentally coming across a child porn picture, for example. You know, like I'm doing a Google search and that just happens to randomly show up, and all of a sudden I'm like, huh, let me go look at my. I don't see that being one of those catalysts one day. I think that's something you have in your soul for a very long time.
I've heard it was some true court thing I watched or whatever. And I said, me and Chris, we're not lawyers, we're not law people, we're just speculating shit.
Right.
But I saw one thing where they were prosecuting a pedophile, and they found child pornography on his computer, and they asked him why was it there, and he actually said, well, I was doing research on a term paper or something. You know what I'm saying? They have an answer for everything. I was doing research on something. That's why I looked it up. No.
Hey, look, I can research Hitler without reading Mein Kampf. If you were doing research on child predators, you could read articles and not look at pictures.
Articles, but not look at this damn thing. That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's a bullshit excuse. That's the plain. I don't mean to laugh. That's kind of a nervous laugh, but I mean that is a weak excuse.
But this sort of thing, so they use, it's a defense attorney's job is to think of ways to get their client out of these sort of things. And if it means that, it means that.
It's absolutely disgusting.
I mean, and we're both going to monitor this. We're both going to. I'm going to keep up on this.
Absolutely.
I mean, but between now and
I think this is
a conversation. Between now and July 29th.
I definitely think this is going to be a conversation. Like I'm going to be monitoring this deeply, and I'm also going to be monitoring this video and audio. If you guys even leave comments to me, I want to know about it, and this is something we will follow up on. I fully intend to build upon this, not only, like I said, with the open invitation to have conversations with other parents of victims and victims themselves. I'm also, going to be keeping an eye out and probably report on the outcome of this if we find out the outcome of this, because I think it's something that needs to be known. It does need to be known. It needs to be addressed.
Well, this ain't going to happen he doesn't have to go back to court till July 29th.
Right.
So between now and July 29th, folks, he's free. And I'm guessing he's going to be hiding out.
But even if he is, the people of his area, you said Niagara, right?
Yeah, it's Niagara. It's this little town, Port Colum, I think. It's in the thing there. It's up in Niagara, Canada. It's Port Colum, I think it's called. But the thing is that he's free, dude. I mean,
unfortunately, we can't do anything about his freedom. But I'm hoping that people from Niagara, people from that area, that are hearing this podcast, I seriously, the best advice I can give is monitor your kids. Know where they are at all times. Not just because he's out there on the street, but there's other people out there too. But because we could make a face to this monster, monitor your kids.
Because and we're not advocating anything. We're not saying to do anything either.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm not calling for none of this is a call to action. Do not harm this person. Do not get yourself in trouble. However, monitor your kids. Keep them safe. Don't put them under quarantine. I know a bad joke in current situation, but know where they're going and what they're doing and their well-being.
It's tough being a parent. Now, I was never a parent. I have stepkids, but and they're teenagers.
Right.
And then I worry. But when you're a parent, Chris, you could answer this question for me. you're always worried about them, man. You know, right?
Uh, uh,
I mean, falling down,
the
hurting themselves, right? You always worry, even when they're 50 and shit. You're old and decrepit. You're going to worry about
Look,
them, right?
I'll give you a perfect example of what you're talking about, and this is something that's very fresh in my heart. One of the visits I had with the kids, I took them out to the local park here. It's a wooded area called Pennypack Park, and
Okay.
I had just gotten them little Razor scooters. Okay, and at the time my daughter was like 8 years old. Okay, now when you first enter the park area that we went in, it has a steep incline. Okay, down into the park area. It's all concreted, so it's a walking path, and all. And they wanted to ride their scooters down. They wanted to ride the hill, and I said, okay, no problem. And my daughter especially is a daredevil. My son's a little bit more timid, but my daughter's a daredevil. So she went full board for it, and she hit a stick or a rock or something, and she went flying off her scooter into the dirt, uh, pretty bad. And the reason I know it's pretty bad is my daughter's one of those people when she gets hurt, she laughs. She laughs about it, and normally that laugh means she's okay.
I've seen that.
She did not get up. She was not laughing. She was crying and just staying on the ground. I hauled ass down there, saw that she was all scraped up, and it was road rash, that she got, and luckily it was nothing severe, nothing broken or otherwise. But I mean, just seeing the hurt and the pain in my daughter's eyes, the tears in her eyes, absolutely crushed me. Worse than any beating I've ever taken in my life. Any physical pain I've ever felt,
Yeah,
but did not compare to just seeing my child hurt and not really being able to do anything to take that away. You know what I mean? Because I can't heal
yeah.
road rash. It's gonna sting until it goes away. You know what I mean? But I made sure no bones were broken. She could walk, she could move her arms, and everything else. Took her back, cleaned her
Yeah.
up, cleaned the wounds, put, bandages on it where I could. But I can't take away the sting. That's going to be there for a couple days, and it crushes me that there was nothing more I could do for her. You know what I mean?
I know. And you've had all forms of physical pain in your life.
Oh yeah, I
You
live
know,
with physical
wrestling.
pain
You've
every
got.
day.
You've been in a couple mosh pits, I believe, in your life, so you know what pain is. But it's sad, and But
Hmm.
hey, you know,
Yeah, I live with
I know
physical
what it is. You
pain.
want to take it all away, man.
I live with physical pain every day. Every day I've got aches and pains and complaints of like people who are 20, 30 years older than me because of the damages I've done to my body. And I would take every single one of them 10 times over than one day of seeing my children in pain, physically, mentally, emotionally. There's just something about being a parent that you just cannot stand not being able to keep your children perfectly safe. If I could put my children in a bubble, I would. Not because I would take away their freedoms, but because then I know they're safe. That's about the only way I could actually make them safe, and I can't do that. Obviously. So, it's much of a learning experience, as much of a learning experience for me to have to be able to understand that there's just some things I can't do as a parent, and that sucks. It sucks that I can't be the Superman that every parent wants to be for their
Well,
child.
and when your children are older, um, they'll have kids of their own. They'll know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if anything, I'm looking forward to the day my
I
kids
mean,
have kids and they pull shit that my kids pulled on me, so I could sit there and go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Remember that?
we're worried about you that way, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
But
but that's life, pal. That sort of thing happens.
now you get it. Now you
You
understand
know,
why Daddy was always saying,
yeah.
"Stay where I could see you." Or
Well,
you know.
they're lucky to have you, and and Jennifer, and it's. I was lucky enough to have one good parent.
And hey,
This
look,
has been a hell of a thing, man. You know?
it really has. And hey, look, to use your situation as a catalyst too. I'm not dogging step parents or your mother or father's boyfriend or girlfriend. 9 times out of
Oh,
10, these people are decent people, and they stepped up or stepped in to be also a positive adult figure in your life as a child. So don't take this
it
as
is a
like,
stereotype, though, of step parents. Though we're always villains, you know.
oh, of course, but
You know that it's a classic. The stepfather just sounds bad, but you're right. I mean, but realistically, they play a hell of a role,
hmm
and it's great. But your kids are lucky because they at least have you, one good who cares about their well-being, and that's the thing that not a lot of folks have.
exactly.
And
Yeah, but
anyway,
that's why I wanted to like kind of end this on that note too. Like when we were talking about your situation, I
yeah,
had said that pedophilers and predators do use the broken home, the divorced family, to kind of weasel their way in. It doesn't happen as often as I made it sound. Most often than not, the ex wife's boyfriend or the ex husband's girlfriend are still decent people, in some way, shape, or
yeah.
form, and try to be a positive influence on the child's life. So don't always take that as Bible and gospel truth, but do be aware that it is a doorway that predators try to use.
Oh yeah, they do everything. You said that one guy was a martial arts teacher, man. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they find whatever they can, and that's what's scary. And do you think there should be better screening processes?
Absolutely, but the problem
I
is
mean, do you think
the
that laziness? I'm just trying to think of.
well the problem is it's a fine line. It's a fine line between vetting somebody who is in a position of trust and violating their own privacies. Like how deep is too deep? Now, of course, to us, like anything that exposes a pedophile or something like that, there is no too deep. However, what if to go that deep, you have to violate a non-pedophiler's uh, privacy to the point of completely violation? You know what I mean? So it's hard to judge. I don't think there's enough out there to vet these people out. However, I don't know how far is too far.
Hmm,
You,
good point.
you know what I mean? Like, should there be a background check? Absolutely. Should there be an application process where you could check on that? Absolutely. Should there be a reference system? Absolutely. Is there? Probably. I don't know. But it doesn't go deep enough without going too deep to be able to expose that. Again, I don't know.
I talked to my wife before you got back, and we were doing this, right?
Right.
And the hardest thing that I've had to do, and I asked Chris, to your listeners, I asked Chris, I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I really was about to share. I was going to share an article and publicly shame his ass, put him on blast. She said it wasn't a good idea, but you
Uh,
know what I'm saying.
no,
I wanted to give him all. I wanted to give him all the press I can give him, man.
my anger towards people who harm children, particularly because of the situation as we discussed. I was right there with you. There was nothing more I wanted to do than to dox this guy and totally throw him under the bus
And we have
and ruin
each of
his
us have
life.
a decent. And we have a decent following, you and I. That's a fair assessment.
Right.
And I want to get as many eyes on this shit as possible. But she told me not to do it.
And I'm right there with you. And I told you that it's like
It's tough, though, isn't it?
I definitely wanted to do it because of my anger towards people who do these things. However, I don't want Realm of the Mist, I don't want SJ Promotions to be known as that type of company, which is why I fought very
I
hard to
know,
not go there.
I know. We had to restrain ourselves, folks, because I'll tell you what, Chris and I are inherently kind of pit bulls at the end of the day, man. And I really wanted to do this, man.
I have anger issues.
We are, and I did too. I didn't graduate anger management. They just told me to leave. I was, it's when they opened the salad bar for me, they realized things were trouble. But the thing is that
is it bad? Is it bad that you punch out your anger management instructor?
Yeah.
Is that a terrible thing?
But I don't know. It's perception. But I really, I'm glad you had to go get Jen, and it gave us time to think. I really am, because if you would have flipped the switch and it was go time, you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, it was
When
better
I
that
told you,
it was better that we stepped back, took a breath, and was able to actually collect our thoughts to do this. But I don't
yeah,
regret
because I
doing
was ready.
this.
I'm glad we didn't. I don't either. And I was ready to go out of the shoot when, remember, like, what do we do? And you're like, I don't know, let me go get Jen. And so, um, kudos to Jen for giving us time to think.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that I hope whoever hears this takes comfort knowing that he's been caught. But for the parents to hear this, know that there's more of them out there. He ain't it. And prevention and whoever answers your call, whoever says, I want to go on there, Chris is giving you an open playground to discuss this on his show.
And it's not just breaking the fourth wall. Not just breaking the fourth wall. I'm pretty sure most of the shows on Realm of the Mist Entertainment, most of the content creators on Realm of the Mist Entertainment, I'm not necessarily meaning the ones we syndicate, but the ones that are actually part of Realm of the Mist. I'm pretty sure they'll sit and talk with you too. You don't want to talk to me, you want to talk to the SOC Corps, they'll talk to you. I guarantee you. Venus absolutely will talk to you. And I'll be fair enough to say that
told you something.
I'll openly ask the other members of the SJ network to extend that invitation as well. I'm pretty sure most of them will.
I mean, I told you something, Chris, that nobody knows but nobody knew but my mom and my brother. So and I told you, and God knows whoever hears this, a story would happen to me when I was a child. And it happened. It's over with. I don't have thoughts about it or anything. And I don't know if she's dead or alive. She's probably dead. But the thing is that here's some funny poetic justice. After I had, I told her I closed the book when I confronted her, and then I heard she got severe arthritis. So that's God's little joke on her. But it's like when Harvey Weinstein got popped, man. A lot of women came out of the woodwork. The whole Me Too movement started.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it takes, and I don't mean this is just truth, man. Sometimes it takes a really tragic thing to tear off the Band-Aid and let everything surface to the, look what happened one September morning back in 2001, man.
Yeah.
We knew terrorists were in the world. We just didn't know how bad it was. I mean,
sometimes you need a tragedy to be able to pull out the good. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
I hate to say it like that, but it's true. I hate to say it like that, but it's true. And my mom used to always say, look for the good in everything. So I think this is going to sound wild, but it's an idea that I just had because of the COVID quarantine that we've all been subjected to. Maybe Joe had more time to use his devices,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what helped get him caught. But he was under an investigation in September, so no, they were already hot on his trails.
As I said from
the beginning of this.
But like I said with the investigation into Steve Mazur, they were following him for months before they finally nabbed him. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they've been
thing with Crawford.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they were monitoring him for a while.
And that's one thing we know about is that, and the listeners I hope know that you can't. They don't just go and do it, right, Chris? They, like we talked about, they know they build a case.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not on, it's like what you said at the beginning of this interview, not on us or this conversation. They didn't go by assumption, dude. If ICE or FBI or I don't know what they have in Canada, was the Royal Canadian. What the hell did they got up there? I don't even know. Whatever law enforcement agency in Canada got dropped in on him, they just don't go on an assumption, my friend. They know something's up.
Assumption is what makes them start looking. But when they arrest,
Yeah.
it's because they have concrete evidence. They have proof. When it comes to things like this, they have evidence in hand. That's
There
one.
we go.
That's the one good thing about this type of crime, is that when they move in for the sting, for the bust, for the arrest, they have caught you doing what you're doing, and they walk out not only with you, but with the contents in hand.
Yeah. No joke, pal.
You know,
And this is
they do their research, which is actually why I don't know if you yourself have ever paid attention to it beforehand. During the whole situation when Trump first got into office, and a lot of people were pushing for the dismissal of ICE. If you remember correctly, there was a big push to get rid of ICE because of immigration. I was vehemently against it, and it wasn't because of the immigration part of it, even though ICE, that's their primary job. Again, when Stephen Mazer was caught, he wasn't caught by the FBI. He wasn't caught by the Philadelphia Police Department. He was caught by a joint operation between ICE and Homeland Security. My children's saviors were those departments. I absolutely defend them.
And I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to get into political stuff. We don't go there. But here's the thing: if it wasn't for ICE, Joe's a Canadian. All right, he's not an American, right?
Right.
So it's not the pedophiles and creeps. They don't just come from Mexico and South America, folks.
No,
they come from everywhere.
That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So and he's whiter than we are. So there's no race shit here.
That's something that definitely has to be addressed to a lot of people. Is evil does not have a color or race or creed. Okay, there are gangbangers that are white. There are rapists that are black. There are, as well as being white and all that. Like the color of the skin does not dictate what crime they will do. If evil is in their heart,
true,
then evil is in their heart. The face doesn't matter.
And that's the truth, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at, pal.
That's it. But
all right, well,
guys, I appreciate you guys hearing us out on this again. From all of us here at Realm of the Mist, we do apologize to you that this content had to be removed, and at least we came forward to tell you the reasons why. And I definitely want to thank Mr. Joyner for coming on and not only sharing his personal experiences, but also, for lack of a better term here, joining me in why I had to do what I had to do for Realm of the Mist Entertainment and for our listeners' safety, and for our practices and standards. Come on here and talk about. But again, guys, thank you so much.
We had a moral obligation to do this tonight, man.
Yeah, we did, and I hope you guys appreciate it. I hope you guys also appreciate all the content that we try to bring to you. Not only normally I have this outro where I say like, subscribe, comment. I don't care if you like it or whatever.
Yeah.
I do hope you share this out, and I do hope you comment on it, because I want to hear your comments, and I think this is a subject matter that people need to hear. But I don't care about views and likes on this as much as I care that this one is more about the message getting out there. But I will say that I hopefully from this point forward, you guys enjoy the content that Realm of the Mist brings, and also the content that SJ Promotions and SJ Network bring to you. And of course, guys, we'll see you on the next Breaking the Fourth Wall, which I believe is Tuesday, where I sit down with the new person. What was their name? Lisa. Yeah, not the band.
Not the band, no.
Lisa Bigsby, Bagsby, I think it is, the author.
Yeah, Lisa Bagsby.
Bagsby, thank you.
She's an author out of Portland, Oregon. It's all right. We've had a lot to talk about tonight, man.
Yeah, my mind's kind of swimming right now. So yeah, I'm sitting down with her Tuesday. So that is the next breaking the fourth wall for you guys, just to let you know. And of course, Steve, if there's anything you want to quickly promote before we cut out?
No, not tonight. I don't want to do any promotion stuff. No.
I agree. I just wanted to end it on people knowing that there's going to be regular content coming too. Our regularly scheduled programs.
Well, we had to exercise a demon. Folks, this is one of those things you would see when you were a kid, when Reagan would come on the TV, and interrupt the A-Team or some shit. This is what we're doing here.
Pretty much.
We're interrupting the normal program to talk about something serious, and that's what media is. All right, Chris.
Unfortunately, that's what we had to do. But hopefully, if it helps one person in one way, shape, or form, that's what matters the most. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us.